There's a new disease system coming to Scum, and bad food might literally kill you. If you're still surviving on low quality food, moldy vegetables, and disgusting stuff like that, when this new update comes, you're asking for trouble. And let's be honest, finding good food in Scum is brutal. Unless you live next to a farm or you hit the smaller towns consistently, you're going to find yourself either starving or stuck with junk food that you can't use to cook a proper meal. And tracking down real ingredients like tomatoes, onions, and bell peppers, it's very difficult if you're not buying it from the trader, but who's got the money for that, right? A garden changes all of that. Sure, it takes some time and it might be viewed as a cosmetic thing, but hey, it's reliable, it's consistent. Once you set it up, it'll keep you fed for a few weeks and not have to worry about getting those little tedious things. Also, not to mention garlic, that crap will save your life, man. Don't worry though, because this guide will walk you through the whole thing, step by step. Very easy. How to build it, where to build it, what tools you need, how to prep the soil, which seeds are worth planting for those who are wishing to just survive, or those who really want to get into the cooking system, and how to avoid, most importantly, wasting your time. On that note, let's get straight into it. Step 1, building the garden. Where should I put my garden? Truth is, it really doesn't matter that much. There are only a few things you need to consider to make sure it actually works. One of which is it needs direct sunlight and rain, so you can't place it inside a base, so don't put a roof on it. That's pretty much it. 2, something to consider that garden plots are not protected by your flag, and you can't lock them. People could walk up to your base and take your stuff if it's not protected. I highly recommend building your garden in a fenced-in area. You put a lot of effort into that, you don't want someone coming out of nowhere and stealing all your stuff. And also remember that anyone can use your garden, they can also destroy your garden. So unless you want all your hard work to be gone, make sure it's in a safe place. The last thing to consider is water. Now, you don't directly need a water source to water your garden all the time, but the initial watering, if you want to not have to wait for the rain, you're going to want to water it a first time. And being closer to water helps. But, you know, it ends up being where your base is, so you're kind of stuck with it. I just use a watering can, run it back and forth, and fill up the farm until each slot has around 2,000 milliliters of water. But if it's raining, you can skip that step entirely. Now, the building part, very simple. Base building, garden, and you want to make your garden plot. This is going to be preferential for each person. My recommendation, you just want to survive. You don't want to worry about any cooking things or anything like that. Just build a 3x3, something small. 9 slots is perfectly fine for what you're going to do. If you're somebody who really wants to get into the cooking and be able to kind of do it yourself, then you're going to want to do a 5x5 garden. Now, you could go bigger if you want, but 25 slots is plenty. I don't think you need very many more than that. I've heard a lot about the weedless garden or the invincible garden. Now, I had somebody comment on my last video a while ago that they said, oh, it didn't work for me. I never mentioned anything about it, but I will tell you guys how I do this. However, there is the truth. There is no guaranteed way to get a weedless garden. Just doing it in God mode does not prevent the weeds. From what I found, it's pretty random. However, this is how I do it, and sometimes I get a weedless garden, other times I don't. I did this 6 times. 2 of the gardens are weedless. The other 4 have weeds. First thing I do is place the garden, and then I water it. I either do it manually or I wait for the rain. Then as soon as weeds spawn, I pull them out right away. Then I leave. I log out, I go raid a town or loot a town or whatever for an hour. Then I come back and check. If there's any new weeds, that usually means the garden will continue to sprout weeds. And then I destroy it and I can try again. That is how I do it. You repeat that process until you get no new weeds, and then from there on out, you'll log out and log back in. There will be no weeds. However, doing this puts you at a really far disadvantage for your farming XP, because weeding the garden gives you a lot of XP. If you're manually weeding with your hands, yes, it can take a good amount of time, about 10 seconds per. If you're using a hoe, it only takes around 4 seconds. 4 seconds, quite a bit of XP. In my opinion, it's worth it. It's worth to just have the weeds and pull them out as you need to. But if you're somebody who doesn't log in every day, you're gonna want to try and do the weedless garden so your crops don't die. Once the garden has been placed, don't just start putting seeds down yet. The next point is very important. Prepping the soil is critical. Skipping the next step can slow down the growth or even kill your crops. Just don't waste your time, and let's do this properly. First off, we're going to talk about fertilizer and what it actually does. So I ran some direct testing. Same plot, same seed, different outcome. Fertilizer does in fact speed up the growth of the crops. Industrial fertilizer grows faster than organic, not by much, but if you apply it at every stage when it's available, the industrial fed crop will ripen first. As you can see, there's 3 potato plants in front of me. This one was used with organic fertilizer, which is ripening, and this one was used with industrial fertilizer, which is now ripe. I also planted some seeds like these tomato plants here with industrial and one without. As you can see, the industrial is further along in the flowering process than the one without any fertilizer. And it's very apparent with the marijuana plant. With the cannabis plant, I put industrial fertilizer here. As you can see, it is much further along in the flowering process than one without any, which was this cannabis plant, which has no fertilizer. And same with this tobacco plant and this one. So fertilizer definitely makes a difference, but if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. And to fertilize, you simply pick up the bag and you can just press F. You can add fertilizer as much as you want, and it gives you a little bit of XP. Now, before you plant your seeds, you need to water the soil. I recommend putting at least 1,000 milliliters of water in there. If you have a close by water source, do 2,000. If you place seeds in a garden crop with no water, they will die really quickly. The rain does help, so what I would suggest doing is setting your garden plot up, waiting overnight if you're on a server. It should rain and your garden should be wet, and you won't have to worry about watering it. However, watering your garden does give you quite a bit of XP, so it might be a good idea to go about and do it that way. However, when you are watering a garden, you have to do each square manually. Once your plant is planted, it'll say water the plant, but if it's not there, you actually have to spill nearby liquid onto the tile for it to work. After you've planted your seed, you can simply press F. Holding right click will tell you how much water's on it, and you can see how much we fill up is 4,750 milliliters. That's the maximum amount it can have. However, I only would suggest about 2,000, as the rest seems to be quite a bit of a waste. Now we're going to talk about crop treatments, and do you actually need them? There are a total of 3 in the game as of right now. One, which is weed repellent. If you're spawning it in, it's called herbicide. It prevents weed growth for approximately 30 minutes. Honestly, if you do the weedless garden, it doesn't matter. And if you want the XP, pulling the weeds is perfectly fine. To me, it just doesn't seem like it's very worthwhile compared to how short the effects actually are of the herbicide or the weed repellent. You don't need it. Now, pesticide and fungicide are important if your crops ever get affected by bugs or plant rot. I have not seen either of those things in a couple years playing SCUM. I don't know if they still exist, but just in case they do, a little icon pops up at the bottom when you're holding right click on your crop, and it will say something like insects or rot. If it says rot or insects, then you need to use either the fungicide if it's rot and the pesticide if it's insects, which will get rid of the bad effect and allow your plant to continue to grow. If it's untreated, then it'll die. Now here's what you actually need. Fertilizer? No, you don't need it. You're trying to get faster results and more XP? Use it. Water? Yes, you need it. You need to fill up your crops with water or let it rain before planting your seed. Treatments are optional. You don't need them. Weed repellent is not needed. Pesticides and fungicides are needed if you notice your plant is rotting or if your plant has insects. If you're just trying to grow your food casually, you can skip all of these things except water. But if you want to farm efficiently, getting faster XP and avoid wasting time replanting dead crops, use the fertilizer, do the water, apply the treatment, and rinse and repeat until your crops are ready to be harvested. Now that the garden is built, watered, and fertilized, let's talk about the seeds. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to give you 2 very simple strategies that will help you determine which is right for you. If you're just trying to survive and that's all you care about, you don't want to do any cooking or anything, a basic 3x3, which gives you 9 slots, is more than enough for a solo player. What I would put in it is 3 potato, 2 garlic, 2 cannabis, and 2 tobacco. Now the potatoes or corn, whichever you prefer, both grow at the same speed, but potatoes give you a little bit more protein and take up less inventory space. Now, garlic is great. It has natural antibiotic properties, which helps you fight infections early in the game before you get antibiotics, which is a great help. Now, cannabis and tobacco both work so that they lower your exhaustion through spliffs. That's how I would use them. That would be the best way. If you want more tobacco and more weed because you're closer to a cornfield, then take away some of the potatoes. But I think 2 garlic is plenty. Anything else for just surviving, I wouldn't really worry about. If you find it, sure, plant it, whatever, why not? But this layout gives you good food that you can do mixed vegetables with the meat skewers and mixed skewers, a few other things, and helps with exhaustion, all without wasting very many slots. Now, if you're going to be cooking the meals of the cookbooks, you're going to want to add a 5x5 setup. Now, if you're going to do a lot of cooking, maybe a 6x6 to get a little bit more in there. But for a 5x5, this is how I normally set it up. I do 2 cannabis, 2 tobacco, 4 potato, 2 onion, 2 peppers, which are the green peppers, 2 chili pepper, 2 garlic, 2 broccoli, 1 zucchini, 2 carrot, 3 tomato, and 1 cabbage. That gives a good balance of everything, and you can cook every single meal just with those ingredients. There will be a few you have to go and buy, like parsnips, because you can't grow those no matter what, but it hits all the major recipes while also providing you with some tobacco and some cannabis that you can use to keep your exhaustion in check. The reason I like that layout is because garlic is always very important for antibiotic properties. The tobacco and the cannabis are great for your exhaustion. Every slot is used. A 5x5 means you can buy a bag of fertilizer and use exactly 25 slots, and you get all the key ingredients for making almost every dish. And if you don't want to start cooking, you can simply just replace a few slots with potatoes or corn for now and just use those for grilled veggies. And now, which is on to step 4, which is essentially once your garden is all planted and prepped, you're basically done. There's no new fancy system, no hidden mechanics, just extremely light maintenance of weeding the garden. All you need to look for is sprouts. As soon as you see any weeds, you just pull them with your hands or use a garden hoe. Either works. There's not really anything unless you want to keep giving them fertilizer to continue the growth in a faster pace. And that is essentially it. You will know the crops are ready to harvest when it goes from the ripening phase to the ripe phase. It'll have a search option on it. You can still hold F. You can destroy the plant, but don't do that. After you're done, you can press F to search, and you can see your crops you've grown. Got a lot more garlic on that one. Go around collecting all of our plants. The potatoes are done as well. Sometimes you get a lot more than others, but you can come back and get several. And now we've got to wait for the rest of it to finish up. If a plant does die, it happens sometimes. Just hold F and destroy it. Before you destroy it though, you can usually search it, and if it's a low quality plant, you can still always take it, right click, and collect seeds. That way you don't have to go back and buy seeds. You can simply just use the same plant to keep the seeds going and then plant them again and rinse and repeat. But after you're done, you should have a beautiful looking garden and you should be happy. You can refertilize, plant new seeds if it dies, water it once, and rinse and repeat. So if you stick to this little routine, log in, check for weeds, check for water, if anything's dead, destroy it, replant, that's it. I'm trying not to overcomplicate it. It's not that difficult of a system. We learned it in kindergarten. Some of us maybe grade 1. Plants need light, air, water, soil, and that's it. At this point, you've got a working farm in SCUM. No more having to go around looking for RNG to get stuff. You have a lot more control over the food you're getting in, and it only took me 1 day. This farm right here, I planted it and I watered it. I can harvest some of it in simply 1 24-hour period. That's not bad, considering all I had to do was water it once, plant some seeds, walk away, come back the next day, weed it again, and then I'm done. Now I can start eating some good food and making some meals. If this guide helped you out, drop a like. Comment down below with your own crop layout. Let me know if it's any different from mine. And if you like succinct information that's accurate, consider subscribing. I have more information like this coming soon. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.